Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, the Eric Erickson Show, all over the place. Let's actually go to the Republican convention floor live, where Kimberly Guilfoyle is still on the stage.
Order yourself a nectar now.
Well, let's see if we can get through all this stuff to get this. She gave this impassioned speech, and the speech is continuing on, and I'm just impressed with where we are with the whole Kimberly Guilfoyle thing. I don't know what that was, folks.
And I try to explain how I feel, that I still need your love after all.
Kimberly Guilfoyle, ladies and gentlemen, is still speaking, just breaking it out of the house. It was incredible. The build was just incredible towards the end of it. I don't know who she was yelling at. It was like she was in the drive-thru of a Wendy's. I like a burger and freedom. I don't understand the Guilfoyle speech. And I got yelled at by someone. Oh, you're so sexist. No, trust me. The speech, I don't know what that was, ladies and gentlemen, but, the speech was just, it was, whoo. Let's move away from that one for a little bit.
And you have the ability to choose your life and determine your destiny.
I mean, you expected an evil laugh after that. Choose your destiny. I just, it didn't work. I'm sorry. I don't know what was up with Kimberly Guilfoyle last night. If there was a crowd, it probably would have worked, but I don't know. Okay. All right. On a serious note, the Republican National Convention, day one. Here's the thing you need to understand about the Republican convention. If you're a Democrat, if you're a partisan of the left, if you hate Donald Trump, you weren't going to like this convention. I don't understand why we've got to listen to the commentariat of the left today complaining when last week it was like they were watching their favorite X-rated movie. I mean, they were just all giggly and excited and heavy breathing and sweating watching the Democratic convention. And this week it's just spittle-fueled rage. I couldn't care less what Republicans think about the Democratic convention. I couldn't care less what Democrats think about the Republican convention. What you're trying to find are the people in the middle. There are a lot of people who don't like Donald Trump but are sympathetic to his policies, and they're willing to vote for him. Consider just again the data from yesterday from the Pew survey that crime has risen into the top 5 issues in this country. It hadn't been in the top 10 for the last number of years, and suddenly it's in the top 5. And the president, whether you like it or not, whether you like him or not, the president accomplished a lot of the goals he needed to accomplish last night in terms of his convention and the way he spoke and interacted with people. Let me just read for you John Podhoretz, who is not a Trump fan, but is of the right. The first night of the Republican National Convention was, all in all, sensationally effective, and effective in ways that the mainstream media and its Twitter chatterers clearly found it impossible to understand. America's opinion leaders loathe Donald Trump so much that it remains a great puzzlement to them how he can retain the support of even 42% of the population rather than, zero. The implicit theory they share is the deplorables theory, that anyone who wants Trump to be and remain president is at root a bad person or someone too easily tempted by false promises and evil lies. If they had ears to listen, they might be able to understand it better after tonight. The message of night one was twofold. First, the case was that Trump has done many things to help individual people in extremis, working to release hostages, deregulating certain types of medical treatments, fighting entrenched interests, and leading a strong economy until COVID came along to kill it. Twitterati laughed at the supposed awkwardness with which Trump interacted with frontline COVID workers and hostages, but what they missed was Trump's good cheer as he talked to them. These exchanges were actually less weird than the ones last week in which Joe Biden talked to party activists over Zoom. And second, the case was that Democrats are supporters of urban chaos and socialist policies that will make American lives less safe and will help immiserate the American middle class. Nowhere was that clearer than the joint speech of the St. Louis couple who were seen in a Twitter clip standing in front of their home brandishing guns against the Black Lives Matter march. They pointed out the BLM people were undisturbed by the cops, while they themselves found themselves under arrest. Their message, "This could happen to you, homeowners," surely struck a chord with Americans who own guns as protection. Stats tell us that 43% of Americans live in a gun-owning household. That's a lot of people. Trump's hope for re-election is based on getting those people to turn out in greater numbers than they did in 2016 to offset Democrat gains. And the Democrat message that cops are bad and rioters are good plays right into Trump's hand. The Democrats also may have done Trump a favor by spending 4 nights last week talking about America's supposed grave sins, structural racism, polluting, and the like. Speaker after speaker last night hammered them with tried and true Republican patriotism. Most effective was Tim Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate, whose speech concluded with these words: "Growing up, he had to cross the street if a white person was coming. He suffered the indignity of being forced out of school as a third grader to pick cotton and never learned to read or write. Yet he lived to see his grandson become the first African American to be elected to both the United States House and Senate. Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime, and that's why I believe the next American century will be better than the last." Nikki Haley, child of Indian immigrants, elaborated, "America isn't perfect, but the principles we hold dear are perfect. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that even on our worst day, we are blessed to live in America. We seek a nation that rises together, not falls apart in anarchy and anger. If Trump can turn the election around, it will be because these ideas resonate with the Americans the media has lost the power to hear and to whom they no longer even attempt to speak." One more point about both conventions. Necessity is the mother of invention, and necessity may have done both political parties a service. As with the case with the Democrats last week, the pandemic created need to substitute intimacy for scale, broke the sclerotic mold in which the GOP's quadrennial gatherings have been frozen for decades. Speeches flowed quickly without the interruption of a roaring crowd. The film material didn't seem like filler, as it did during conventional conclaves. Let me stop there. That's John Podhoretz writing in the New York Post, and he really is on point here. And one of the things the Republicans did that was missed by Democrats that enraged the Twitterati is the president's team played a video of all of the kind words that the Democrats said to Donald Trump during the pandemic. And that was effective. It was a reminder how two-faced some of these people are. And it was a reminder that many of them said many kind things about the president during the pandemic when he was helping. And that is something that you can't underappreciate in this. The president of the United States trotted out those voices, let them breathe on their own, and it was a powerful moment. He was able to reset a lot of what people like about this administration, even if they don't like the president. He reminded people of the things they had done. I want to play for you right now part of the video that the Trump team aired last night from Washington, D.C. They aired it during the events of last night, and their theme is Land of Promises as voiced by the American people. Listen to part of this.
I didn't back down from my promises, and I've kept every single one.
This current administration had made hope possible.
We want this nation to continue to be the beacon of hope for the world.
How many people said they're going to leave America if Donald Trump was elected? They're all still here, and they're not going anywhere because we are in the land of the free.
We will never, ever sign bad trade deals. America first again. America first.
America's great USMCA trade bill.
This is a big win for the United States of America. This is a great trade deal.
We are going to lift the restrictions on the production of American energy. We will create millions of more jobs.
Hope to me is the belief in a better tomorrow and creating a better future for our children.
When I look in the eyes of my grandchildren, I want them to know that their papa was not silent.
We will rescue kids from failing schools by helping their parents send them to a safe school of their choice. We will completely rebuild our depleted military. The countries that we are protecting at a massive cost to us will be asked to pay their fair share. We will take care of our great veterans like they have never been taken care of before.
This guy saved me.
Yeah.
He saved me. Thanks to him, I'm here. To me, he's giving people hope. What he's doing for the poor people, what he's doing for everybody.
We are going to appoint justices of the United States Supreme Court who will uphold our laws and our Constitution.
I supporting law enforcement is so important for keeping America great.
As long as I'm president, I will never defund your police, that I promise you. It's time to deliver a victory for the American people. We are going to start winning again. It's called Promises Made, Promises Kept.
Now, listen, you may not like Donald Trump, but this was an interesting juxtaposition from the way that the Democrats did it last week. Last week during the Democratic National Convention, what the Democrats sought to do is to show Joe Biden is a likable, personable person. And they showed numerous clips of Joe Biden interacting with people randomly. Joe Biden apparently has the cell phone of everybody in America but me, and he calls them all, and he calls them all the time. It was warm, and it was endearing, and it was affectionate towards Joe Biden in a way very few people actually relate to Donald Trump. What the Trump campaign did, and I think they did well, was they showed it doesn't matter whether you like Donald Trump or not. His policies are what you're there for, and he keeps his promises on those policies. Now, you can disagree. You can say, no, he doesn't. You can say he's a liar. I mean, the media is in full meltdown today in their fact-checking pattern. The media doesn't matter here. And the people who pay attention to the New York Times and MSNBC don't matter here. What matters here are the people who don't like Donald Trump, but actually don't like the policies of the Democrats. And what the president is trying to show them, and I think did well last night, was that it doesn't matter whether you like Donald Trump or not. Donald Trump keeps his promises. And they used the voices of Americans not to relate to Donald Trump, but to show Donald Trump kept his promises. Like his exchange with the people who had been held captive around the world who he freed. We're going to play a lot of that audio. If you're here for the non-political stuff, you're not going to get a lot of that today because there was a lot that happened last night at the Republican convention, and I think there was a lot of it they did well. And if you want a sense of just how well it went for the Republicans with just kind of the honest brokers of the media, consider this clip from Van Jones on CNN.
On the one hand, I think everybody here would applaud and should applaud the fact that the Trump administration has helped the black colleges, criminal justice reform. There is stuff here that should be applauded. I'm not so much for partisan. I won't give them that due.
Now, Jones went on to be critical of him, but that little nugget there it plays into this. That the honest brokers of the media, and Van Jones is of the left, but he is an honest broker. I very much like the guy. Even as we disagree in politics, he's willing to call it as he sees it, and he's not willing to be pushed over by Democrats towards their talking points. And he was willing to give the president credit there. There are some people in the media who are, but most of the media is so profoundly broken in the age of Donald Trump, they can't do that. Brian Stelter on CNN already out there highlighting the CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the MSNBC take, all of which are critical of the president. They don't matter. What matters is the people watching at home. And apparently, from what I'm told reliably this morning, more people watched the first night of the RNC than watched the first night of the DNC. That matters because the message last night was all pro-America. Donald Trump keeps his promises, and he's going to keep you safe. The RNC executed well last night. Not everything was perfect. We'll get into some of that. but they did a good job last night. They should be proud of themselves for what they were able to pull off. It doesn't help the media that they're focused on the peaceful protests in Wisconsin that have turned violent, and they can't bring themselves to say that. It really is just fascinating to me that the media cannot bring themselves to be honest with what is going on. And the media cannot bring themselves to be honest with the violence in the protest. And that is something that has been hit on by the Republicans in their speeches. And one of those speeches, one of those that really resonated, was Maximo Alvarez, whose family fled Cuba for South Florida, who teared up talking about the goodness of this country.
The sound of tears hitting the paper of an application to become an American citizen. Most heard and liked the promises, but soon after, they experienced the reality. Look at them, listen to them, learn the truth. Those false promises spread the wealth. Free education, free health care, defund the police, trust the socialist state more than your family and your community. They don't sound radical to my ears. They sound familiar. When Fidel Castro was asked if he was a communist, he said he was a Roman Catholic. He knew he had to hide the truth. But the country I was born in is gone, totally destroyed. When I watch the news in Seattle, Chicago, Portland, and other cities, when I see the history being rewritten, when I hear the promises, I've heard echoes of the former life I never wanted to hear again. I see shadows I thought I had outrun. My parents only wanted one person to decide my fate, me. Not some party member, not some government official, not some bureaucrat. In America, I would decide my own future.
That was a powerful, powerful speech. It really was just a wonderful speech. It was, you know how you can tell that was a great speech? How forcefully the Democrats came out and denounced it. I mean, there was some real nastiness towards that guy by Democrats pointing out. So he apparently owns now a chain of gas stations in South Florida and fought and won against regulators. And they were claiming that was somehow bad, attacking this guy in his business, calling for boycotts of his business. That's a good man. And he had a compelling story. I'll tell you another compelling story. The president with the American hostages in the Oval Office who surrounded him and told him their stories was it was a moment. Most people, I don't know that most people even realize that sort of stuff happened. And that was the relevance of his speech and of him doing stuff like that to show that side of him.
My name is Michael White, Mr. President. I do, once again, it's an honor to be here, honor to meet you in person. Basically, what had happened with me is I traveled over to the country of Iran. It turned out it was a major, major trap, and I was apprehended there. I went through a lot in their injustice system, in the Iranian justice system. Iran is an oppressive, extortionist, terrorist regime. You know what I'm talking about. But what you did, sir, is you were able to get me out of that prison in record time. It was amazing.
That was a great story. He had a story to tell, and good for him for telling it. It was great. By the way, this hour of the program is brought to you by Dynamic Money. Dynamic Money is, they're my financial advisors. My wife and I are actually scheduled to sit down and do more budgeting with them, I think next week. And that's what they do. I know everybody's heard of Dave Ramsey. And really what I like about, Dynamic Money is they have a more flexible model on teaching you money management skills that actually allows you to navigate life with a credit card, which I travel and have to have one. And they can manage your 401k. What I really like is they're 100% fee. They got low fees, but they're 100% fee. They're not going to try to sell you something on commission and steer you into a product that benefits their bottom line. They want to give you sound, straight advice, and that is really why I've come to depend on Dynamic Money. From how to build an emergency fund to how to manage my 401k to how to allocate resources. And then they do work with the guy I use for investments and the guy I use for life insurance and the mortgage and the refi. They work with all those people to make sure that everybody is working for me to get the most out of my money. Go to dynamicmoney.com and check them out. Hello there. It is Eric Erickson. This is the Eric Erickson Show. I'm willing to entertain your take on the Republican convention. More people watched it last night than watched the Democrats last week, believe it or not. The phone number, if you want to call in, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. You are more than welcome to give me a holler, give me a chat, talk to me about it, whatever you think. I'll allow it. Now, I want to get into some of the other speeches you may not have heard. And before I do that, I need to give credit to CNN. Now, full disclosure here, I worked for CNN for 3 years before moving to Fox, where I was for 5. And I have a lot of friends at CNN. I think behind the scenes, CNN does a very good job. I think CNN has been broken by the president, as have so many media outlets. And the Don Lemon, Chris Cuomo hours are flat out insufferable. And some of the midday anchors have become deeply hostile to the president and just across the board, the level of nastiness towards this president. And I get they feel embattled. He called him the enemy of the people, but they have descended to him. They have not risen above him. And this is important to me to get on the record so that you can note it. As much as I and you may criticize coverage at CNN, whether it's the Don Lemon stuff or the Chris Cuomo stuff or some of the midday hosts who just, the complaint hours, CNN does have really good and fair people who I very much enjoy and like. I know I like and respect Wolf Blitzer, who actually had a lot of positive things to say about the Republican convention last night. I know, like, and respect Gloria Borger. She's like my big sister. Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, John King. I think they do a good job. I think Anderson Cooper. I know many social conservatives who tell me regularly, I can't tell you the number of theologians in particular who have told me they would far prefer to go on Anderson Cooper's show and talk about the cultural issues of the day than go on Fox's shows where they feel dismissed. And on Anderson Cooper's show, they feel like even though they know he disagrees, given his background and worldview, he gives them a fair hearing. I say all of that to say, as much as I criticize CNN often these days with a lot of the content that comes out of Chris Cuomo and his incest fest with his brother and with Don Lemon and just the staggering meltdowns that he has and some of the other anchors there, they actually covered the Republican convention the way a convention should be covered. And they actually, I think, deserve credit for it. They let the speeches speak for themselves. I watched CNN last week and I watched it this week because they're the network that advertises themselves as fair. You knew that the Fox network would probably be a little more critical of the Democrats, and MSNBC would be just like, it just staggering love fest for the Democrats. And you knew this week, MSNBC at one point last night cut out of the speeches altogether. They just couldn't handle it. And Fox, I got to tell you, and the reason I praise CNN, Fox News didn't even cover the 9 o'clock hour. CNN gave copious coverage to it. They broke in no more last night than they did the first night of the Democratic convention. I actually had to go back and watch because I watched the Braves last week, but I did go watch and pay attention. How many times did they break in? When did they break in? They did a very similar format. Now, you can quibble with commentary if you want, but CNN played it straight, and they actually do deserve credit. At a time that CNN is routinely attacked and bashed and criticized, including by me on occasion, they deserve a lot of credit, particularly when they had some of their own loud voices like Brian Steltner and others saying that CNN needed to jump in and fact check and update chyons and do stuff like that to combat misinformation and disinformation of the RNC. They resisted the urge to do that. They played it straight last night. Will it last all week? I'm going to watch and find out, and I'll tell you. But last night, CNN did a very good job. And if you're watching the Republican convention, unless you're watching the YouTube or the C-SPAN stream, CNN is the only place to watch it before 10 o'clock. And from 10 to 11 even, Fox, I don't know what was up with Fox last night. It was very weird to see Steve Scalise on Fox while Charlie Kirk was speaking, and then see Charlie Kirk on with Fox while Steve Scalise was speaking. Meanwhile, you could actually see them giving their speeches on CNN. They cut out of Steve Scalise's speech on CNN to do some commentary and take some commercial breaks, which they had packaged in the run-up to doing roll calls and stuff, which the RNC didn't do in the way the Democrats did. But I thought it was very fair handling. I thought the punditry analysis and commentary was good. I thought that Dana Bash and Jake Tapper and all of them did a really good job last night. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time pointing that out because I know in this day and age, Republicans watch Fox, Democrats watch MSNBC, CNN oftentimes seems like it wants to be MSNBC light, and people seem to be skeptical of their coverage. I think that the political team at CNN is the best. And I think they showed why last night in their coverage of it, and they deserve that credit. Even the president this morning, don't take my word for it, President Trump this morning is tweeting nice things about CNN. Let me say that again, because I know it may blow your mind. The president of the United States this morning is tweeting thanks to CNN for their fair coverage of the Republican convention. That right there says everything you need to know. Now, let me play you one soundbite from a CNN analyst, Dana Bash, talking about Tim Scott's speech.
Tim Scott's speech, the senator, the ultimate speech for this evening, was incredibly powerful in so many ways. Yes, it was political. Yes, he went after Joe Biden and Democrats on a lot of important contrast issues. But he also talked about his personal story. And the line that I think we'll all remember is, "Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime." Abby, that was pretty powerful. Yeah.
It was, and I want to play that for you right now.
Especially for hardworking people hoping to rise. Instead, we must focus on the promise of the American journey. I know that journey well. My grandfather's 99th birthday would have been tomorrow. Growing up, he had to cross the street if a white person was coming. He suffered the indignity of being forced out of school as a third grader to pick cotton, and he never learned to read or write. Yet, he lived long enough to see his grandson become the first African American to be elected to both the United States House and the United States Senate in the history of this country. Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime. And that's why I believe the next American century can be better than the last. There are millions of families just like mine all across this nation, full of potential, seeking to live the American dream. And I'm here tonight to tell you that supporting the Republican ticket gives you the best chance of making that dream a reality. God bless you. And Father, please continue blessing the United States of America. God bless.
I got to tell you, that was a powerful, powerful speech. From cotton to Congress in one lifetime. That was a powerful moment. In fact, there was a real buildup of Nikki Haley's speech, and I want to get to her speech because she had some great things to say. There was a real buildup of Nikki Haley's speech last night, and Tim Scott was somewhat treated as an afterthought. And I think Scott, he closed the convention last night and gave the best speech of the night. One more bit from Tim Scott's speech.
Make no mistake, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want a cultural revolution, a fundamentally different America. If we let them, they will turn our country into a socialist utopia. And history has taught us that path only leads to pain and misery, especially for hardworking people hoping to rise. Instead, we must focus on the promise of the American journey.
The promise of the American journey, and he went on to outline that. It was a great speech. Tim Scott, just by the way, I know Tim. I like Tim. My time on stage with him, he's come to multiple Resurgent Red State conferences that I've done, and we sit on stage together every time and have always had the best conversations. He's just such a dear, dear person. I hate that we're going to lose him. He's not running for re-election in the Senate. I really hate that we're going to lose him, but man, he's a good guy. Let's go to the phones for 877-973-7425. Michael in Watkinsville, you watched it last night. What'd you think?
It was powerful. I was moved to tears multiple times, and you're spot on about Tim Scott. It was amazing.
All right, let me get your take. What did you think of the Cuban man?
Another opportunity to drop a tear. He was sweet and sincere. I don't know him. Didn't look him up later. Didn't do any of that. I thought it was fantastic.
Okay, now listen. You're a Republican to begin with, I presume.
Yes.
And you're going to vote for Donald Trump anyway, I presume.
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there anything that you would have done differently? The only reason I asked that is because if a Democrat were to call in and I would ask him, is there anything you liked? Is there anything that you as a Trump supporter wish they had done differently?
I don't know, really. That's a good question. I didn't really have an agenda. I don't think. I wanted to see if there was a connection or if they did the same thing Biden's group did, was just bash Biden, which I didn't think was going to play. And so I think I was pleasantly surprised with how connected it was to the people and especially given Trump's, I don't know, abrasiveness. So let's call it that. I've not been a big fan of him as the way he talks about others, even his enemies. I wouldn't do it that way myself. So I think, they connected with me on a level that, frankly, Eric, I think causes me to jump up this morning and want to go to work for the man. And prior to last night, I was just going to be quiet and vote for him and call it a day.
All right. Michael, I'm glad I asked that question because you said something I want to get at. For all the Democrats who may listen, whether you hate listen or not, and you can't fathom what you saw last night, this wasn't a convention for you. It was for people like Michael, who is excited now, where he was going to go vote and maybe not do anything. And Michael, I got to tell you, first of all, I appreciate your phone call. I'm going to let you go there, but I appreciate your phone call. And I want to tell you that one of the big issues with the Republicans that Democrats can't fathom, because Democrats hate the president so much, they can't fathom that there are people out there who dislike the president but are willing to vote for him because of his promises and his agenda. And that's what the GOP needed to do last night, is to highlight those people and persuade them that, you know what, you may not like this guy, but look at the good stuff he's done for Americans. He's surrounded with first responders that he's talking to casually and with humor. He has on stage the woman who, because of the president allowing her to take risky medicines, was able to be healed in a way she otherwise wouldn't. He had him surrounded in the Oval Office with people who had been rescued from abroad, some of whom were captured in the Obama administration, and he was able to bring them home. He had to show promises made, promises kept, and he did that. And I think that actually was effective for him. Back to the phones, 877-973-7425, 877-973-7425. Douglas, calling from Macon. How are you?
That would be Lizella.
Lizella? All right.
Yeah, no, Lizella. But, yeah. Anyway, I was really impressed with this Kimberly Guilfoyle last night. I don't know if you caught her or not, but she hit the nail on the head. Very, very effective.
I got to tell you, I disagree with you on that one. I felt like she was the lady who yells at the drive-through window.
No, but I thought she was great. She hit the nail on the head. But now, I also, Miss Donna Brazile, I thought she had been very successful through her lifetime and career, and I didn't realize that she had been treated so badly. I mean, what can you tell us about Miss Brazile's life and career?
Oh, look, Donna Brazile and I are friends. We've known each other for a while. She's actually a dear family friend. She's over on Fox now. She and I were at CNN together. And she was Al Gore's campaign manager. She became chair of the DNC. And she was booted from CNN over the allegations that she had sent Hillary Clinton a bunch of questions in one of the debates to help her against Bernie Sanders. I do think in hindsight that was a somewhat misrepresented story there. She's a good person. Let me tell you my Donna Brazile story. And I realize that if y'all hate her politics, we're not supposed to like people whose politics differ. But let me just tell you my Donna Brazile story. We were at CNN together, and we had a debate in Mesa, Arizona, and she came in late. She actually came a day later than everybody else to get ready for the debate because it was Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and she wanted to be in New Orleans. We're both from South Louisiana, and she wanted to be in New Orleans, and she came in, and she had this massive bag of beads and doubloons for my kids. She had stayed out on the street all night collecting this stuff for my kids. And when she got there, she apologized and said it was actually had been full. But when she got off the plane, there were a group of soldiers coming back from Afghanistan who were also getting off a plane as she was coming into the terminal. And so she stood there and she beaded all of the soldiers as they were getting off the plane, gave them Mardi Gras beads and doubloons that she had collected for my kids. And it was sweet. And she is she's a wonderfully kind person. We disagree on politics, but man, that woman can cook too. She grows her okra up in Washington just like I do here in Georgia. Grow our own okra to make our own gumbo. I can't say a bad thing about her. I genuinely like her as a person, even if we disagree on politics. And I'm glad she's over at Fox now because she's got a very quick wit, and you may hate everything she says. But she's very funny in how she says a lot of this stuff. And so I'm glad that Fox has someone like her over there now. The phone number here, if you want to call in and give your take on the RNC is, what is my number? 877-973-7425. 877-973-7425. Yeah, I continue. Okay. No. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that later. I don't know what was happening with Don Jr. last night. The genuine reaction from left and right, and this is important, even from Republicans, was did he have a hit of weed before he went on stage? Because he had red glassy eyes, and I have no idea. But there was something, all I could think was being charitable. If it wasn't drugs, did the makeup lady get makeup in his eyes? I don't know, but there was something up with him. He gave a good speech though. And it's, there was polling out that shows that in 2024, Pence, Don Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Nikki Haley would be like the four big candidates. I don't actually believe it about the Trumps. The reason I don't believe it about the Trumps is Americans tend to abhor dynasty, the grumbling from Republicans over the Bush family over time. I think that, particularly if the president wins, you're going to see the GOP want to go with Pence as the loyal VP. It's his turn. If Trump loses, I think you're going to go. You're going to have Republicans react badly. Republicans don't particularly like losers. And you're going to have look how long it took the GOP to re-embrace George H.W. Bush after he lost in 92. It's going to be an issue, and we're going to have to deal with this issue of where we go as a party, and turning the Republican Party into the Trump dynasty, I don't think is wise for the GOP. Now, there's a side note here on where the GOP goes moving forward with this. Right now, the party is the party of Trump. And this week, although it is branded as the Republican National Convention, I think the GOP did something smart last night. They made the entire convention about Donald Trump and a defense of Trump's policies and his person. As I mentioned yesterday, the polling clearly shows there is a divide between people's views of the president and people's views of the Republican Party. And by firewalling the president and the party to some degree, if the president goes down in November, they have insulated the GOP from the fallout. And if the president rises in November, well, the GOP doesn't have anything to worry about. People want to elect those who affect the president's agenda. I think this was smart of the Republicans to do. Some people disagree with this, but I think it was very smart to make this the Trump National Convention, not the Republican National Convention, to give some separation between the party and the president, to insulate the party to some degree from the president's personality. That one thing that people, even those people who like what the president does, a lot of them don't like his personality, and suburban voters in particular tend to lash out on stuff like that. This gives some level of insularity to the GOP, and it was smart of them to do. I really was struck last night by just how much it is the party of Trump. Every single thing was about the president. The word Republican was not used very much last night. Now, I don't have a word count of it, but I watched the 9 and 10 o'clock primetime hours. I streamed it. I don't know that I'm going to stream it live on Instagram again tonight. I don't know. Maybe I will. We'll see. But the level of insularity between the GOP and the president was actually smart. And the word Republican was not used nearly as much as the word Trump. Making sense of current events during this extraordinary time can be trying. Conceived in Liberty, the Bradley Speaker Series is a new video series that offers meaningful perspectives through engaging 15-minute interviews. Visit bradleyfdn.org/liberty to watch their most recent episode featuring Mitch Daniels, president of Purdue University, the former governor of Indiana. Daniels is a former governor. He was the previous director of the Office of Management and Budget, and he's a 2013 winner of the Bradley Prize. In this episode, you'll learn more about why Purdue was one of the first universities to announce its intentions to reopen, and hear some encouraging news about the students' response to returning. He also addresses the loneliness crisis among younger people and offers guidance to federal and state leaders on managing the COVID-19 pandemic. That's Bradley with an L-E-Y at the end, fdn.org/liberty to watch the video. New videos appear weekly, so come back often, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be notified when a new one's posted. That is bradleyfdn.org/liberty. Hello, it is Eric Erickson here, the Eric Erickson Show, all over the place. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I'm glad to have you joining me this hour. I have waited until this hour. Our Athens affiliate does not come online until 10 o'clock. And so I waited until this moment. And I want to play a good 3 minutes of it. And I want to take your reaction on the RNC last night. We're making our way through the RNC. I got a lot of audio cut up from this last night. There were some great moments. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I want to talk about dishwashers. Before I do that, though, I need to play this for you. Oh, that's right. It's time for Herschel Walker.
I'm not an actor, a singer, or a politician. I'm Herschel Walker. Most of you know me as a football player, but I'm also a father, a man of faith, and a very good judge of character. I've known Donald Trump for 37 years, and I don't mean just casual ranting to him from time to time. I'm talking about a deep personal friendship. I watched him as an owner of a professional football team. Right after he bought the team, he set out to learn. He learned about the history of the team, the players, the coaches, every detail. Then he used what he learned to make the team better. I watched him in the boardroom. He can be in the middle of a big meeting, but if one of the kids was on the phone, he dropped everything to take the call. He taught me that the family should be your top priority. I watched him treat janitors, security guards, and waiters the same way he would treat a VIP. He made them feel special because he knew they were. He understands that they are the people who make this country run. They clean, they cook, they build, they drive, they deliver. He told me, Herschel, make an effort to get to know people. Remember their names. That stuck with me. One time, I planned to take his kids to Disney World with my family. At the last minute, Donald said he'd like to join us. So there he was, in a business suit, on It's a Small World ride. That was something to see. It just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist. I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things. So does Donald Trump. He shows how much he cares about social justice in the black community through his actions. And his action speaks louder than stickers or slogans on a jersey. He keeps right on fighting to improve the lives of black Americans and all Americans. He works night and day. He never stops. He leaves nothing on the field. Some people don't like his style, the way he knocks down obstacles that get in the way of his goals. People on the opposing team didn't like when I ran over them either. But that's how you get the job done. I pray every night that God gives him more time. Give him 4 more years. He has accomplished so much almost all by himself on a constant attack. But there's still more work to be done. If you love America and want to make it better, Donald Trump is your president. He's my president, and I'm blessed to call him friend.
That was Herschel Walker speaking last night, former dog. Guess once a dog, always a dog. And a lot of people, even people who aren't fans of the president, really liked that speech. And I thought he sold it very well. One of the other people who I thought did a good job, actually, was Vernon Jones from here in Georgia. Vernon Jones didn't generate a ton of buzz by the mainstream media, but I thought they did a great. I thought he did a good job, and CNN aired a good portion of his speech, and I want to play for you some of that as well.
Hello, America. My name is Vernon Jones, and I'm a state representative from the great state of Georgia. As you can see, I'm a man of color, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, too. You may be wondering, why is a lifelong Democrat speaking at the Republican National Convention? And that's a fair question, and here's your answer. The Democratic Party does not want black people to leave their mental plantation. We've been forced to be there for decades and generations. But I have news for Joe Biden. We are free. We are free people with free minds. And I'm part of a large and growing segment of the black community who are independent thinkers, and we believe that Donald Trump is the president that America needs to lead us forward. This is no time for sleeping in the basement. Joe Biden has had 47 years to produce results. But he's been all talk and no action, just like so many of the Democrats who've been making promises to the black voters for decades. We've been their captive audience. When President Trump sought to earn the black vote, the Democratic Party leaders went crazy. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer literally started wearing kente cloths around the U.S. Capitol, as if pandering were enough to keep us satisfied. Let me tell you why I'm supporting our president. I grew up in the South, in Laurel Hill, North Carolina, Scotland County, the Green Pond community to be exact. My parents, Robin and Rufus Jones, built with their own hands a 4-room cinder block home with no indoor plumbing. They had very limited education, but they instilled in us a strong work ethic that drove me from those tobacco fields of North Carolina to those hallowed halls of the Georgia General Assembly. My parents taught me if I believed in God, worked hard, and treated every person fairly, there was no limit to what we could achieve. I attended North Carolina Central University, an historical black college. For generations, HBCUs have been the incubators that develop black scholars in math and science and religion, engineering, and politics. They have been important springboards for the black success. but Democrats haven't treated them that way. When President Trump took office, he changed everything. He delivered historic funding to HBCUs, and he guaranteed it for 10 years, something that's never happened in the history of this country. That gave our HBCUs stability, the chance to grow, and produce the next generation of black leaders. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He's also supported school choice to ensure that no child, no matter their race or zip code, is left behind.
I'm going to stop it there. It was a good speech. The line that drove the left absolutely insane is, quote, the Democratic Party does not want black people to leave their mental plantation. Genuinely caused a riot on social media among the left. The moment he said it, I was actually doing a live stream last night. The moment he said it, I knew all of the right heads were going to explode, and they absolutely did. Absolutely did. They also exploded over this particular line from Nikki Haley's speech.
A Biden-Harris administration would be much, much worse. Last time, Joe's boss was Obama. This time, it would be Pelosi, Sanders, and the squad. Their vision for America is socialism, and we know that socialism has failed everywhere. They want to tell Americans how to live and what to think. They want a government takeover of health care. They want to ban fracking and kill millions of jobs. They want massive tax hikes on working families. Joe Biden and the socialist left would be a disaster for our economy. But President Trump is leading a new era of opportunity.
They did not like the fact that Nikki Haley pointed out Joe Biden wouldn't be his own boss. They really did not like that last night. She actually had a remarkable defense of America as well. In fact, my 14-year-old woke up this morning and said, why are people attacking Nikki Haley for saying the country's not racist? And I had to play her part of the speech. She's like, oh, it was a good defense. We'll get there as well. I want to take your phone calls, 877-973-7425. Richard, you're going to be next. Welcome.
Hey, Eric.
Hi there.
Good to talk to you again.
Sure.
Hey, look, I got to tell you, I watched Fox last night, and I also had in my hand my phone so I could watch the speeches, in pretty much real time. I hated what Fox did. I mean, I really did. I wasn't there to see their commentators. I wasn't there to see their, guests. I wanted to hear and listen to the speeches. And it just irritated me to no end. So I guess I'm going to try CNN tonight.
I got to tell you, I'm glad you said that. I was perplexed as to why Fox didn't do that, and I guess they wanted some level of counter programming, ratings, and the like. But CNN is going to capture the ratings because Fox. I mean, listen, I didn't want to hear Charlie Kirk speaking when Steve Scalise was giving a speech. I didn't want to hear Steve Scalise talking to a Fox host while Charlie Kirk was speaking, and that was the dynamic last night. It was bizarre.
I mean, they skipped over the Cuban gentleman. Right. I mean, I don't even think they may have recapped him once or twice, but he gave a very good speech, in that whole thing.
Yeah, I got to say, I think if I would have programmed it differently, knowing Fox, knowing what Fox was going to do, if I was at the RNC, I would have put Herschel Walker and Mr. Alvarez in the 10 o'clock hour with Nikki Haley and Tim Scott to make sure you had them there because they were powerful messages. But it really was bizarre of Fox not to cover the 9 o'clock hour.
Right. Oh, no, I completely agree. And, I agree with you about Guilfoyle. I mean, I felt like she was screaming at me the whole time. I was so away with time.
Richard, I got to let you go. Your cell phone's breaking up on me, but thank you for the phone call. 877-973-7425. Listen, we had somebody call in about Guilfoyle who liked her. I don't know. She's in an empty room, folks. I'll play this little soundbite for you. She's in a completely empty room talking.
And you have have the ability to choose your life and determine your destiny. Don't let the Democrats take you for granted. Don't let them step on you. Don't let them destroy your families, your lives, and your future. Don't let them kill future generations because they told you and brainwashed you and fed you lies.
It didn't work for me. Now, look, I got a lady from Atlanta, a Republican activist in Atlanta. She's upset with me. She thinks I'm a sexist and misogynist, that led the Latina woman on stage and you just don't like that she's No, it's not that she was boisterous. It's that she was over the top. I mean, I kept expecting her to throw out an evil laugh there at some point. Don't let the Democrats decide your destiny. It did not work. And I'm in the majority. Listen, know when you're in the minority, even when you think you're right. And those of you who thought it was a great speech, you are in the minority, even among Republicans. Even among Republicans who heard that speech, you were like, why is she yelling at me? It didn't work. It did. Don Jr. gave a good speech. I don't know what was up with his eyes. There are a whole lot of people. I was getting text messages all night from people. Did he smoke weed before he went on stage? People suggested, is he on drugs? What? Glassy red eyes? So here's the thing. Guilfoyle's speech and Donald Trump Jr. speeches were pre-recorded. They weren't live on the stage. Nikki Haley and Tim Scott were live on the stage. Those were pre-recorded. And I'm perplexed by the Guilfoyle speech. If it was pre-recorded, why didn't they go say, hey, take two, calm the heck down? I don't know why they didn't do that. It didn't work for me. If you want to be on this program, 877-973-7425. We're going to take a break. Ma'am, this is a Wendy's. Can you calm down? Welcome back, or in the words of Kimberly Guilfoyle, welcome back. I'm sorry. It was so over the top. It didn't work for me. The phone number, if you want to be you can call in and praise Kimberly Guilfoyle's speech. That's fine. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I have to play this one little clip from the president. It broke the souls of members of the media, and I found the reaction. Y'all, okay. I just real quick. I gotta say this. There are things that Barack Obama would do that the media would give him a pass on. Like, for example, if you remember in 2009, when everyone was at the White House and John McCain was trying to tell the president something, and he interrupted John McCain and said, "Hey, John, I won." And the media gave him a pass on this sort of stuff. And the president knows that the media has no humor for him, and he can say stuff that just causes their heads to explode. Let me play for you a soundbite of the president and the reaction from the media, not from the left, but from the media, which you can say is of the left. It was predictable.
Thank you very much. Now, if you want to really drive him crazy, you say 12 more years. Because we caught them doing some really bad things in 2016. Let's see what happens. We caught them doing some really bad things.
The reaction from members of the media was hysterical outrage. It really was. The man knows when he says stuff like that. It's like the Trump tweet that shows the Trump 2020, and then it has Trump 2024, and then it has Trump 2028, and then it has Trump 3032 or 2032, and on and on and on it goes. And the media, absolute staggering meltdown over him doing that. At some point, you got to laugh at the stuff, or you've just got to be willing to ignore it if you're in the media, because all it does is it helps the president. When the media blows up everything about the president, when the media fact checks every word the president says, and when the media goes that overboard with the president's statements, it allows people to tune it out, and the president has figured that out. It becomes very much like the boy who cried wolf, except it's the media crying wolf. And the president knows this and has used it remarkably to his advantage. And the fact that the press can't figure it out is actually because they're not dumb people, but they can't figure it out. They can't get it in their head that screaming about everything makes every single scream less noticeable. It was like Kimberly Guilfoyle's speech last night. Every line was yelled, and a lot of people just kind of cringes. Why are you yelling at me? It's the same way with the media when it comes to their treatment of Donald Trump. And I got to tell you, as an aside, I find that very funny that the media can't figure it out, and the president has figured it out and uses it so often, so well to his advantage, to bypass the media and get other people to tune out the media. I want to take your phone calls on your reaction. We still got a lot of speaking to go, but a lot of you want to chime in on this as well. A lot of people, we had a caller in the first hour who called from Watkinsville, and he was going to vote for the president. Well, not enthusiastically, but was going to vote, and now suddenly he's energized, and that's part of the point of this convention that the media misses. When we come back, I want to take your calls, but I want to talk about dishwashers. Of all things, believe it or not, we need to talk about dishwashers. This hour of the program is brought to you by True Precision. They had a good segments on the Second Amendment last night. True Precision supports the Second Amendment. They're obviously benefited by the Second Amendment. They make modified parts for your guns, and they're awesome. I have a Glock 43X. When I take it to the gun range, people want to know where I got it. I got it at True Precision. I was a customer of theirs, and then they reached out. They wanted to sponsor the program. I love them. They are fantastic. They are works of art. But not only are they works of art, they are highly accurate, well-built pieces for your guns. I've got them for my Glock. I got a slide. I got a barrel. We're about to upgrade the trigger. They upgraded my sights. What you do is you go to true-precision.com. That's their website, true-precision.com. Doesn't matter where you are in the country. You can buy their slide. You can buy their barrel, buy a trigger, upgrade your gun. If you put Eric, E-R-I-C-K, in at checkout, make sure you do that because it lets them know you're coming from me, and you get 10% off when you do it. True-precision.com. You really want to go take advantage of their works of art. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. Taking your reaction to the Republican National Convention last night. I want to talk about dishwashers. Before I talk about dishwashers, I want to go to the phones. I'm going to go, let's see, first, I'm going to go to Ed. Ed, welcome to the program.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I've heard some complaints, and I was complaining about it too last night. About they'd show the convention for a little while, and then go to some talking heads, sort of babble on of what we think they said and so forth. I found a fix for that. Last night, I skipped from 4 different channels, and CNN, MSNBC, C-SPAN, and Fox. And when I was watching, when their talking heads popped up, I went to another channel, and I didn't miss a thing the whole night.
You know, I was tempted to watch C-SPAN, and the RNC streamed the whole speech live on YouTube. They've got a YouTube channel. But I decided to stick with CNN last night because I really wanted to see if their coverage differed from their coverage last week with the Democratic convention, and it didn't. I was pleasantly surprised, particularly when there were calls by people to get them to change and to get them to do aggressive fact-checking and the like. And they didn't. They stuck with it. They covered them fairly. They interrupted at the same time they interrupted the Democratic speeches. I thought it was good. And CNN, even the president this morning, giving a shout out to CNN for their coverage of it, which I'm surprised he did, but he did. B in Macon, going to go to you next. Welcome to the program, B. How are you?
Okay.
Good. What's going on?
I was thinking about how that Kamala Harris was claiming to be the first lady of color to run for vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about Sarah Palin is Native American. Wouldn't that make her the first lady of color to run for vice president?
I don't know that she is.
She is. She's from Alaska. She's a Native American in Alaska.
Well, so her family is actually they moved there. They're not native. Hang on a second. I'm going to find this out for us.
Okay.
Let's see. Sarah
when she
Palin.
was running for vice president, that was what they were saying, that she was a Native American.
Yeah. No, let's hang on a second. Okay. The Daily Telegraph does her profile from back then. She's native. She's not a native of Alaska. Oh, it's Toby Harnden. I know Toby. Toby's a great guy. So her father is Irish and her mother is German British descent, and she's from Idaho
really?
and moved to Alaska.
I wonder why they were talking about her being Native American.
Her husband is apparently part Eskimo.
Okay.
That must be it. Yep. So, that's it. Todd Palin is part Eskimo, champion snowmobiler. And she met Todd and eloped with him sometime after her family moved from Idaho to Alaska. That's the answer to the question. It's the husband.
Thank
so
you
he
for
would have been
clearing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much for calling in. Yep. All right. So Todd would have been the first second dude, as he referred to himself, and would have been the first Native American second dude. All right. I want to talk about dishwashers. You may not realize this, but dishwashers that in the last 5 to 6 years have been changing to meet EPA regulations. And one of the things with dishwashers in the last 5 to 6 years is their efficiency use of water. And in addition, the detergents that go into dishwashers now no longer use phosphates. Phosphates are very important in dishwashers because phosphates help break down the bond between food and ceramic and plates and glass. You get stuff stuck on even your Pyrex dishes. You run them under the sink, you soak them, you do all of that, and it doesn't come out. You can run them in a dishwasher with phosphate in the dishwasher detergent and in a dishwasher on a high pressure, high rinse, high heat cycle, and it'll come off typically, but not anymore. The key to getting a dishwasher that works in the last 5 years is you've got to wash your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. That then really just sterilizes the dishes. It doesn't actually wash them. I know that sounds bizarre. It sounds a little bizarre and absurd, but that's where we are in this country, and it has a lot to do with EPA regulations adopted in the second half of the Obama administration. Washington state banned phosphates early in the Obama years, and other states began to expand it. The EPA grabbed onto it and started doing it, and in addition, insisted on efficiencies within dishwashers that make them less functional as dishwashers. I bring this up because the president has talked a lot about this on the campaign trail, and at least members of the media very perplexed. 2 weeks ago, the president talked about water pressure in shower heads. When I buy a shower head, I have to drill out the water regulator. Every shower head in my house, I've had to drill out the pressure regulators because the pressure regulators slow down the pressure of the drain. Now, I've got a pressure regulator that comes into the house that keeps everything compliant, and so the pressure regulator on the shower heads messes up things further. So I got to take them out. And the president talked about this the other day. The Congress limited the amount of pressure that can flow through shower heads in order to save water. And the EPA interpreted that whereby if you have multiple shower heads, the shower heads combined must meet that flow as opposed to each shower head meeting that flow. So if it's two and you've got two shower heads, each shower head can only have 1 pound of pressure as opposed to 2. And the White House, the Trump administration, has revised that so that each can have 2. This sounds very innocuous. It sounds very dumb. But this actually resonates, particularly the dishwashers, with a lot of people in America. And every time the president says these sorts of things, it's the members of the media act with puzzlement and like it's nonsensical. And why is the president bringing up dishwashers and shower heads on the campaign trail? Well, I bring this up to point out that much of the media these days is actually in a bubble. They live in the D.C. New York corridor. They tend to be highly secular. They don't often go to church. They less and less celebrate sectarian holidays. They gravitate to each other. They may be foodies or what have you in this corridor between New York and Washington, and it becomes very, very insular. It becomes very insular to the lives of Americans. And most of these people lean to the left socially, culturally, morally, fiscally. They believe that government does a lot of good. They have a lot of faith in government. They have a lot of faith in people, but they've decided that people betrayed their faith by supporting Donald Trump. And it really was incredible over the last couple of years to be mindful of in the coverage of the president how much of a bubble so much of the mainstream media now is in. They do not relate to the average American. They don't relate to people who hunt. They don't relate to people who own guns. They don't relate to pro-lifers. They don't relate to people who go to church on Sunday. They don't relate to people who have big families and need good dishwashers. And they don't relate to people who need big vehicles to carry their big families. We are increasingly diverging into two countries, culturally, morally, fiscally, and the media overwhelmingly has planted its flag with the left and cannot relate. So much of the coverage that you're seeing from the media today about what happened at the Republican Party's convention last night is fueled by being within that bubble. They don't understand that Maximo Alvarez, a Cuban refugee to this country, could potentially relate to Americans and have a captivating story to tell. They cannot understand that Herschel Walker might relate to people. They do not understand that the president sitting with a bunch of people who were hostages in other countries and he helped them get home could relate to people. They don't understand that. They look at what the Republican Party did last night and they believe it's a lie. They believe it's out of touch. They believe it doesn't represent anything America could want. And that's because the media lives in a bubble where it's not the America they want. And that's a very important distinction moving forward when you understand that so much of the mainstream media in this country, the political analysts at CNN and NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, even some at Fox, they don't live in the world that you and I live in. I don't care where you're listening to me right now. I'm broadcasting from Macon, Georgia. I'm broadcasting from the middle of Georgia. We haven't been able to go to church in months, although we want to. Our kids just started going back to school. I have a 14-year-old who turns 15 this week. I have an 11-year-old who turns 12 in December. We have a dishwasher that is 8 years old, and it is broken in pieces, and parts of it are broken, and we keep adding, fixing, and repairing because we don't want a new dishwasher because we know how bad they are. We have 2 SUVs to be able to transport our kids to various things and their friends. We don't live in an urban corridor. We have woods behind and next to our house. We live in a suburb, and most of the media doesn't. They don't live in houses. They live in condos or apartments. They don't have big cars. They have drivers or they take public transportation. They don't have to worry about their dishwasher because someone washes their dishes. They don't have to speak to the middle class except maybe the doorman in their apartment or their driver on their way into their network. This becomes a serious problem. And one of the things that has happened in the past is that the media does get outside of Washington during primary season. They go to places like Iowa and South Carolina. But because of the shaping pandemic, they missed a lot of that travel this year. So they missed being able to get a sense from the American people of what's going on in the country. And as a result of that, they've missed a lot of things. And their ties and their links are often to people on the Democratic Party side. And so they're surprised when they see that crime as an issue, which hasn't registered with people as a major issue in this country for 3 or 4 years, is suddenly a top 5 issue, according to Pew. Like, how can this be? They don't understand that the president can highlight the protesters burning down local businesses, and that's an issue that resonates with people because it doesn't resonate with them, and it doesn't resonate in their bubble. It doesn't resonate in the bubble of people who don't realize that there's a problem with dishwashers in this country. A buddy of mine on Twitter in the 2016 election asked how many of the blue check marks knew anyone who drove a pickup truck. I've mentioned this anecdote before. Members of the media, he's respected on Twitter. He's got followers. People pay attention to him. They lost their minds in rage with him for daring to ask that question, as if he was suggesting they lived on another planet. How dare he question their Americanness? And the reason they acted that way is because they don't. The Ford F-150 is the best-selling vehicle in this country. The Chevy Silverado is the number 2 best-selling vehicle in this country. The number 3 best-selling vehicle in this country is the Dodge Ram. And the number 4 is the GMC Sierra. Those are the 4 most popular vehicles in this country. Last year, those 4 vehicles outsold every other type of vehicle. Normally, though they're the best-selling, cars combined outsell trucks, not last year. And many of the major members of the media who shape the news, who guide the news, who pontificate on the news, don't know anyone who owns one of the top 4 best-selling vehicles in the country because they live in a bubble. And that bubble shapes their coverage. And they shape their coverage based on those they interact with. And the people they interact with are people also in the bubble who do not live the lives of ordinary Americans who live within 100 miles of a major American river valley. They all live within 25 miles of a coast. And so much of the coverage you're going to get this week is going to be from people like that. That, by the way, that is actually why I like listening to people on CNN like Dana Bash and Jake Tapper and Gloria Borger and John King and even Wolf Blitzer, who go out of their way to try to relate to people who are outside that bubble. That's why the president is praising coverage at CNN. They go out of their way to try to understand Trump voters. They may not like them. You may not like their coverage, but they try their best to understand these voters. And so much of the coverage you're going to get from the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Don Lemons or the Chris Cuomos who are on CNN, but actually in the bubble and don't want to recognize it. So much of the coverage you'll get from them is so hostile, virulently hostile to people who might vote for the Donald Trump. They've presumed that these people are all racist, and they're not. And you've got good people like Tapper and Bash and Gloria Borger, John King, Wolf Blitzer, and the like on CNN. You've got Brett Baer at Fox News. You've got Bill Hemmer. You've got Martha McCallum. You got Tucker Carlson. You've got the Fox and Friends guys, and guys and gals, I should say. You know, one of the things that helps Fox with this coverage is they try to do a great deal to pay attention to what people within 100 miles of a river valley think as opposed to 25 miles of coast. And you're seeing this in the coverage now, and the hostility to Trump voters and the inability to process that the message from the Republican convention actually works for those voters. If you don't get why dishwashers in America are an issue the president brings up on the campaign trail, you fundamentally cannot understand the president's strategy. You think it's a dumb strategy. It's not. It is a strategy that gravitates and gears towards people who aren't attuned to politics but have real-world grievances about the way government has regulated problems into their lives. The president gets this. That so many of the National Press Corps doesn't isn't a reflection on the president. It's a reflection on the press corps, and they need to do better. I'm as an aside here, I'm just going to tell you, I'm sore. I'm like, it pains me to sit right now. I went to the gym. So I go to this place in Macon called Tao Training. It used to be CrossFit Tao. Now it's training, but it's more comprehensive than CrossFit. But yesterday it was CrossFit. And I had to throw a 20-pound medicine ball in the air 110 times and swing a 50-pound kettlebell 110 times. And do 110 push-ups. And that was my workout. And I'm dead. I feel like I've been run over. Maybe I would feel better if I was run over. I'm dead. There are parts of my body that I didn't know existed, and I only know exist because I can feel them hurting right now from what I did yesterday. I literally went to bed last night and thought, oh gosh, I've got the virus. my chest hurts so bad. And that's one of the signs you have the virus is you have just pain in your chest. And I thought I've gotten the virus. What have I done? And then I thought, wait, no, you idiot. You had to throw a medicine ball 110 times and do 110 push-ups. You're hurting because of that. I blame Steven, the trainer. Listen, if you live in Macon and you want to die at the you want a really good trainer and workout, go see Steven at Tao. I pay so that you can't come work out with me. I have an yes, that y'all. Okay. I really should get back to the convention, but I'll tell you, this is my level of petty selfishness. I pay extra to work out by myself at the gym with the trainer with no one else around. And the reason I do, I kid you not, if I go to the gym, apparently everyone in Middle Georgia listens to WMAC where I broadcast on. And if I go to the grocery store, I got to wear earbuds now. So that people can see and not because everybody wants to stop and talk. And I was going to just a regular old gym and people would come up to me. I'm on the tread. I am literally running on a treadmill and people want to ask me my take on politics. I'm like, I can't talk. I'm running. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm going to go pay extra so that I can be at the gym where no one else can be. The gym is closed and you can't come in while I work out. But if you want to really go to work out, in a CrossFit style Tao, where I go, it's by the mall, the river crossing store shops. Steven is great, the owner, but man, y'all, please. I love you. I really do. And I'm glad that so many people listen to the show in Middle Georgia. I really am. But it's getting a little awkward out there, particularly in political season right now. The number of people, and I love you all. And I actually had a guy at the store come up to me the other day. He says, I don't want to bother you, but I listen to you and I love your show. I was like, thank you. You're the type of person I can talk to. I just don't want to give you the play-by-play on the polling analysis while I'm in the grocery store, down the healthcare aisle looking for vitamins for my wife. I'm like, really? I can't do that. All right. When we come back, I will take more of your phone calls and more analysis of the Republican convention, and maybe then we can move on. Making sense of current events during this extraordinary time can be trying. Conceived in Liberty, the Bradley Speaker Series is a new video series that offers meaningful perspectives through engaging 15-minute interviews. Visit bradleyfdn.org/liberty to watch their most recent episode featuring Mitch Daniels, president of Purdue University, the former governor of Indiana. Daniels is a former governor. He was the previous director of the Office of Management and Budget, and he's a 2013 winner of the Bradley Prize. In this episode, you'll learn more about why Purdue was one of the first universities to announce its intentions to reopen, and here's some encouraging news about the students' response to returning. He also addresses the loneliness crisis among younger people and offers guidance to federal and state leaders on managing the COVID-19 pandemic. That's Bradley with an L-E-Y at the end, fdn.org/liberty to watch the video. New videos appear weekly, so come back often, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be notified when a new one's posted. That is bradleyfdn.org/liberty. Hello and welcome, everyone out there. It is Eric Erickson. I'm happy to take your calls on the Republican convention. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I'm going to take a phone call. I'm going to move on to a different topic, and then I'm going to come back to the convention. We still got stuff to play and things to talk about. And I guess we'll be doing that this week. Just fair warning for those of you who kind of get tired of this stuff. There's so much happening this week. Now, why didn't I do that much last week with the Democratic convention? Because if I did, none of you would listen. Do you really want to hear Barack Obama drone on for hours on end? I mean, some of you would, but you'd be in the minority. I know my audience. There's good stuff this week. And me as someone who doesn't particularly care for the president personally, but I like a lot of his policies. I can feel after watching the convention just last night, I can feel like, you know what, we're headed in the right direction here. We've already had a couple of calls from people saying, I don't really like the guy, but man, this is good. It makes me want to go vote for him. And that's the message the Republicans needed to hit. Now, I want to go to Diane calling from Macon, Georgia. Diane, welcome.
Hi.
Hi there.
I'm calling about what you were talking about regarding various social classes and groups of people who live in a bubble.
Yes.
I would add that one good example is politicians with unaffected incomes deciding which of our jobs and livelihoods are essential.
Oh, that's a good one. You're absolutely right. The multimillionaire politician who doesn't have a day job other than he's a full-time politician, who doesn't have a stake in the economy, who can decide for himself whether or not your business is viable. Yeah. You know, I got to say, that is one thing I think is to Brian Kemp's credit, is he did not decide to classify businesses as essential and non-essential. Now, just so you know, in all fairness to all politicians, there actually is a law that actually gives a technical definition for what is an essential and a non-essential business. And an essential business is a business that provides communications and supplies to those who aid the government. So if you are if you work for a gas station, you're essential. If you work for a cable company and you're keeping utilities going, you're essential. If you're in the military, you're essential. If you work for a media broadcaster, you're considered essential. And that's actually, there's a federal law. But beyond that, and this is important, beyond that, there is the issue of whether or not your business has the right to stay open. And in some states, politicians picked and chose, and in this state, the governor decided that if you can keep your business open with certain requirements, that's fine, until he decided it was every business needed to close except for those the federal government classified as essential, and we needed to shut down. I thought it a responsible job, and I realized that he made a lot of people angry for closing down at all, and he made a lot of people angry for opening. I thought he did a good job. Now, I want to move on to something, and this could get me in trouble. I need to be careful how I talk about this, because I know this is something that could get me in trouble. I know that. But I feel an obligation to say this. One of the ways the world conspires against you is the world conspires to make you care about things you cannot control and distracts you from the things you can control. I want to say that again because I need you to understand where I'm going here. The world works to make you care about things you cannot control and distract you from the things you can control. I had to sneeze. Let's try this again. I could feel it coming. The world works to distract you from the things that you can control and keep you focused on caring about things you can't control. And so you see the state of the world around you, and you become despondent and prone to despair. You see rioters, you see looters, you see violence, you see police brutality. You see the things that you cannot control, and you care deeply about those things. And it distracts you. The world distracts you. The media distracts you. Everything distracts you from those things you can care about and can control. That's where we are as a country. I just got an email from a friend of mine who actually is a Democrat who was listening to part of the program, and it was expressing some frustration and upset about what's going on in the country. And it got me thinking about this, and the thought's not original to me. I can't find the actual C.S. Lewis line, but C.S. Lewis made a point about that as well when someone asked him how to care about things around the world far off places, and he basically said, don't. Not that you should be concerned about them, not that you should pay attention for them, not that you shouldn't pray for them, but you can't control those things, but you can control your backyard. And I think there's a real divide shaping up in politics between people who realize that and people who don't. People who are so focused on changing Washington, D.C. as if it can change the whole country when it can't. When people are trying to find the silver bullet to solve the problem when there is no silver bullet. And what we see at the national level during conventions of last week and this week is an explicit focus on preserving or changing keeping or taking over Washington, D.C. And the fact of the matter is your local school board plays a bigger role in your daily life than Washington, D.C. does. And how many of you are going to your local school board meetings? Your mayor and city council, wherever you live, will affect your life on a daily basis more regularly and more completely than Washington, D.C. And how many of you care about your mayoral and city council races? Your county commission will affect you in more fundamental ways than the president will. Your governor and your state legislature will as well, on a daily basis, impact you more regularly than Washington, D.C., from your kids' education to crime on your streets. And how many of you are focused on that? Or are you focused on Washington, D.C.? And the odds are it's not just this week and last with the conventions. It's every week we all get spun up about things that happen in Washington, D.C. that aren't really going to affect us in the way our school board, our city council, our county commission, or our state legislature, or our water authority, or our industrial authority, and our local communities will. And when we see what happened in Wisconsin, when we see the man killed by police, it has spun a lot of people in Wisconsin into outrage and fury. I think we're probably not getting the complete story there, given it does appear the guy was reaching into his car. The police were concerned for their own lives. They told him not to do it. It's being spun this way and that way. But you can't, unless you live there, really affect those police or that situation. What you can affect is your local community. And this is broken record time for me. Some of the best advice you will find on planet Earth resides in a single book. That book was written over several thousand years. It is a book of wisdom and advice, and for those of us who are believers, it is the very word of the living God. And one of the great pieces of advice you will find in that book is to seek the welfare of the city in which you live and pray for it, and there you'll find your welfare. And that is found in Jeremiah 29. And I want to read for you the passage of it, because this is the advice that I think is the advice that all of us should take for how to navigate through our life. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. It actually reads, thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease. But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For in its welfare you will find your welfare. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let your prophets and your diviners who are among you deceive you, and do not listen to the dreams that they dream, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you in my name. I did not send them to you, declares the Lord. Seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf for its welfare, and you will find your welfare. Let me ask those of you, I'm just randomly, I'm gonna open a map. I'm gonna look at a city in Georgia, and I know, given our audience, that I've got listeners there. And so I'm going to ask the people of Eatonton, Georgia, where I pull up on the map. People of Eatonton, Georgia, do you know where the battered women in your neighborhood go when they need rescue? Do you know where the homeless man on the street goes at night? Do you know his name? Do you know where he gets his meals? Do you know how he became homeless? Do you know your next door neighbor? Do you know their name? Do you know anything about their life? What about those of you in Athens? Do you know your neighbor in your apartment complex or down the street? Do you know where the homeless go? Do you know where the children in your neighborhood go when their parents aren't home? Do you know how to help? Do you know where the food bank is? Those of you in Rome, where's the soup kitchen? I say these things, and I'm mindful of the fact that there are areas in Macon where I live that I've got to do better at. You can be spun up by Washington, D.C. all day long. And the politicians of America right now, the convention last week for the Democrats, the Republicans for this week, they're trying to persuade you the other side is bad and they're good and righteous, and really they're all sinners too. You may like the policies of one better than the policies of the other, but the reality is those policies aren't going to affect you by and large. Sure, a health care package can affect your income and your insurance, and a tax cut or a tax increase can affect your income and your life. But by and large, it's going to be your city council. It's going to be your board of education that's deciding whether or not your kids can even go back to school. It's going to be the local nonprofit and the local churches. Is your church engaged in the community, or is your church so aloof that it only preaches on a Sunday and sends missionaries around the world and ignores its own backyard? Are you, in your church, in your community, in your unchurched nature, are you seeking the welfare of your community? Are you engaged in some way in your community to improve your community? Because there you're going to find your welfare. And I've mentioned before, I believe this nation is in cultural decline, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Donald Trump is not going to stop it any more than Joe Biden is going to stop it. It's just the way the world works. We are in cultural decline. We are headed that way. You may not like the pessimism. I call it realism. And if you want to preserve anything, you want to protect yourself, you want to avoid some level of persecution and hostility to you, be engaged in your community as a member of your community. Don't abandon your faith. Don't abandon your values, but be involved in your community. Seek the welfare of the community where you live. Build your house, grow your garden, start your family. Don't decrease. And seek the welfare of your city. So much of what we're seeing at the political conventions last week and this week are to tell you that the other side is bad and out to get you. The other side is not bad and out to get you. They just view the world differently from you. And I realize as a partisan with a talk radio show, I'm supposed to tell you the other side is bad and wants to get you. And I used to really believe that. And now I've come to realize that the other side, I think, has bad ideas, but they themselves are not bad people by and large. There are exceptions, but there are exceptions on the conservative side. If you don't believe me, all you people who rallied with Jerry Falwell Jr. to defend the president of the United States, he's been letting his wife sleep with another dude while he watches, if you can believe the press reports. It's always amazing to me how private immorality precedes public displays of apostasy and bad behavior. Not a thought original to me. But a lot of you allied with him, well, he's not exactly a good person, is he? And you're so busy looking at the other side. Maybe stop looking at the other side and actually look in your own backyard and figure out a way to improve your local community, whether you're in Macon or Eatonton or Athens or Clarksville or Clayton or Rome or Dalton or Jasper or Vidalia or Vienna or Unadilla, wherever you are. Seek the welfare of the city in which you live. We are so focused this week on a political convention for a politician in Washington, D.C., how much will we focus on our own backyard? It's a question I got to answer for myself, but it's one you got to answer for yourselves as well. You can't affect what's going on in Wisconsin with the riots and the violence. You can't affect the people in Portland, Oregon. You can't affect change in those communities. You can't impact those police departments. You can't open people's eyes to injustice in those communities unless you live there. But you can in your community. And part of me just hates that so many people feel like on talk radio now my job is to spin you up and get you mad, when really what I want you to do is focus on the fact that you have the power to change your local community. And many of us would rather complain about Washington and focus there than doing anything for the homeless guy down the street. You are your brother's keeper. A powerful moment from Nikki Haley in last night's speech as so many Democrats condemn the country as inherently racist. She defended the United States, and I thought it was a great defense.
There's one more important area where our president is right. He knows that political correctness and cancel culture are dangerous and just plain wrong. In much of the Democratic Party, it's now fashionable to say that America is racist. That is a lie. America is not a racist country. This is personal for me. I am the proud daughter of Indian immigrants. They came to America and settled in a small southern town. My father wore a turban. My mother wore a sari. I was a brown girl in a black and white world. We faced discrimination and hardship, but my parents never gave in to grievance and hate. My mom built a successful business. My dad taught 30 years at a historically black college, and the people of South Carolina chose me as their first minority and first female governor. America is a story that's a work in progress. Now is the time to build on that progress and make America even freer, fairer, and better for everyone. That's why it's so tragic to see so much of the Democratic Party turning a blind eye towards riots and rage. The American people know we can do better. And of course we value and respect every black life. The black cops who've been shot in the line of duty, they matter. The black small business owners who've watched their life's work go up in flames, they matter. The black kids who've been gunned down on the playground, their lives matter too. And their lives are being ruined and stolen by the violence on our streets.
That was, I thought, a powerful moment. And you know that the left thought it was a powerful moment as well, because they've left out everything after Nikki Haley saying the country isn't racist, and they have been savaging her. I mean, genuinely savaging her for daring to say what she said last night. And she's right, and they're wrong. And she has an American success story, just like Tim Scott has an American success story. And the fact that the left decided to go nuts over what she had to say is really I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised that they would go there. And I find it interesting that they want to, Haley is actually in an interesting position right now, in that there are a lot of people on the right who don't like her because she wasn't sufficiently pro-Trump to begin with, and they don't believe that they believe she'll sell him out eventually or sell out his values. There are a lot of people on the left who despise her because they really genuinely believe that she's the biggest threat moving forward within the GOP, and so they want to destroy her now. And she's got to figure out a way to navigate this very carefully over the next 4 years, whether the president wins re-election or not. I mean, the question goes for the president, if he wins re-election, is Mike Pence the front runner in 2024? We haven't heard from Mike Pence yet. I've got some audio from him we need to listen to when we come back, right here on the Eric Erickson Show. Hello and welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. If you want to call in and be a part of the program, thank you to listener Taylor who sent me the C.S. Lewis quote I was thinking of earlier. Listen to this. I think each village was meant to feel pity for its own sick and poor whom it can help, and I doubt it is the duty of any private person to fix his mind on ills which he cannot help. This may even become an escape from the works of charity we really can do to those we know. God may call any one of us to respond to some faraway problem or support those who have been so called, but we are finite, and he will not call us everywhere or to support every worthy cause, and real needs are not far from us. Seek the welfare of the city in which you're in exile. Now, I want to turn my sights on the president and the vice president. I played a lot of the other clips. One more from someone not named Mike Pence or Donald Trump. And this is from Jim Jordan, who, if you watched CNN last night, they actually, I don't think, covered all of this. They interrupted part of it. They had to go take their commercial time out before the big things began. But listen to this.
They tried the Russia hoax, the Mueller investigation, and the fake impeachment. But in spite of this unbelievable opposition, this president has done what he said he would do. Taxes cut, regulations reduced, economy growing, lowest unemployment in 50 years, out of the Iran deal, embassy in Jerusalem, hostages home from North Korea, a new USMCA agreement, and of course he's building the wall and rebuilding our economy as we speak. I love the president's intensity and his willingness to fight every day in Washington for our families. But what I also appreciate about the president is something most Americans never get to see, how much he truly cares about people. Our family has seen it. 2 years ago, our nephew Eli was killed in a car accident. He lived a mile up the road from us, grew up wrestling and training with our boys, was a high school state champion, varsity athlete for the University of Wisconsin. It's a Saturday morning, 3 days after the accident. I walked to the car to head up to Eli's parents' home when the president called. We talked about a few issues, and then he asked how the family was doing. I said, they're doing okay, Mr. President, but it's tough. The president said, yeah, losing a loved one is always difficult, and it's really tough when they're so young. I then said, Mr. President, I'm actually walking into their house right now. Obviously, they don't know that I'm talking to you, but if you'd be willing to say hello to Eli's dad, you'd make a terrible day a little less terrible. What's his name? The president asked. I walked through the door and said, Todd, the president wants to talk to you. For the next 5 minutes, family and friends sat in complete silence as the president of the United States took time to talk to a dad who was hurting. That's the president I've gotten to know the last 4 years.
The Democrats did a lot of that with Joe Biden. And to be fair, there are a lot of stories like that to tell about Joe Biden. And again, this goes back to me saying you can quibble with whether you define him as a good guy or not based on the policies he supports, but Joe Biden is a nice guy. And there are tons of people with tons of stories about Joe Biden like that. But those stories exist for Donald Trump as well, and you would never know it by the media coverage of Donald Trump, and that's why that needed to be highlighted. Now, to the president and the vice president, let me begin with something the vice president said. They surprised the delegates in Charlotte who were doing their official nominating in Charlotte. Joe Biden did not go to Wisconsin where the Democrats were. He didn't go in and do that. And so the president wanted to come and the vice president wanted to come. Here's the vice president.
It was 4 years ago that all of you gathered here made it possible for America to have a fresh start. You knew we could be strong again. You knew we could be prosperous again. You knew we could have a president who put America first again. And in 2016, you elected President Donald Trump to the White House. And think of all we've done. We revived this economy through cutting taxes, rolling back regulations, unleashing American energy, and fighting for free and fair trade. And after years of budget cuts, this president rebuilt our military. We restored the arsenal of democracy, and we're once again giving our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Space Force the resources that they need to defend this nation every day. We've stood up for the rule of law and for our most cherished liberties. This president has seen, with your support, more than 200 men and women confirmed to our federal courts at every level, and they are all conservatives who will uphold the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution, like the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms.
One more for the vice
president. You compare the message of what's coming this week to what we saw in Delaware last week. How do you see it differing?
I think the choice in this election is clear. The American people are going to see a great contrast. You have President Trump, who said that we're not going to shut this economy down again. And to hear Joe Biden actually talking about shutting down our country again just shows how out of step he is with the progress that we've all made as a country. I know Joe Biden last week said that democracy is on the ballot. Well, President Trump and I believe that the economy is on the ballot. The future of this country is on the ballot. Law and order is on the ballot. And we're going to take that case to the American people.
You know, can I just say, you listen to Mike Pence's performance and all of the kabuki theater from pundits over the last year of, is the president going to drop him? Is the president going to drop him? Is the president going to get Nikki Haley? Is the president going to get somebody else? The vice president, every time he speaks, dispels those rumors. The vice president is so capable, so competent, is such a promoter of the president, and is so trusted by other people there's no way the president was going to abandon the vice president. And I'm glad now we've reached the convention and the nominations and stuff, and we can ditch that nonsense. It really is was a silly conversation going on, and I'm glad to be rid of it. Let's go to the phones. Ray calling from Macon. Ray, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
I'm good. What's going on?
Well, look, I heard you talking earlier. Actually, someone called me and said that you were talking earlier about the homeless situation and feeding homeless folks. And I wanted to invite you to come down to Houston Avenue to a location we have in Macon where we prepare meals for the homeless. And on Sunday, we feed around 100 homeless folks and needy people in the South Macon community and as well as downtown. And we're coming up on an anniversary. September the 7th will be our 15 years we've been doing this in Macon. We fly underneath the flag because I don't need a lot of publicity. I just need to feed some folks. And the ministry is called Scrambled Eggs for Jesus. And I would love to invite you to come. Yes, I would love to invite you to come one Sunday. The servants come around 6:30 and we begin to prepare the food. And then we serve it out around 8:45. And usually we're gone by 8:30, 8:45, and we go downtown and we find some folks, homeless folks walking around, and we've got one simple phrase: "Are you hungry?" And when they say yes, we jump out of the car, we hand them a box of grits and scrambled eggs and sausage and toast and pancakes and give them a water, bless them, and we move on to the next person.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh, okay. So let me ask you a question. Are you calling from your cell phone?
I am.
Okay, I got your number. I'm going to give you a call.
Okay.
It's probably going to be this afternoon, but I want to give you a call. But I appreciate that. I Scrambled Eggs for Jesus. I like that name.
Yes. And we're on the Facebook, so you can look it up on the Facebook. You can see what we do. We've got a little COVID-19 team because we had to change our protocols and the way we do it. But normally we would have everybody come in the gym and sit down and then have an opportunity to give them a word of hope and encouragement about Jesus Christ. And then we didn't really go downtown, but because I had leftovers, I began to go downtown, and I found a whole nest of people. And the homeless situation in Macon is growing because they're well taken care of here in Macon. There's one thing about Macon, Georgia. The homeless people are gaining weight. I just say it like that. They're well taken care of. But there's still a terrible need for some counseling and some other needs that need to be met on a personal level for the homeless that are in Macon. But at the same time, you want to help them along. They need to either grow and work towards success, or they need to find a place where they can be secure at. Too many in Macon is they're laying in stoops, they're disrupting business, and it's not too long before people are going to cry out about how many they have. So along with Daybreak and other groups and organizations, they are well taken care of in Macon, and we're kind of proud to see the different groups of people that work towards that. But love to invite
Ray,
you again.
Let me ask you a question about that, actually, because whenever I bring these sorts of things up, I know the question I get most often when this comes up from people who may not understand the situation is that not then creating an incentive for them to stay if they're that well fed?
Well, absolutely. But you don't want you got a fine line you're working with there. You want to help them along, but you don't want to kick them out either. I mean, Macon doesn't need to be disingenuous about what we're trying to do as far as help them. But at the same time, homelessness should not be a career path. We should be working on other ways to help them up and help them out. And there should be requirements too with a lot of that, and that'll take care of a lot of people. If you start putting requirements, they tend to move to other places. But that's just sending your problem somewhere else. But really, the homeless situation in Macon can be defined as people that have substance abuse problems, people that actually have mental abuse problems or mental problems, and then there's those people that actually are down on their luck. With a little help and a little encouragement, if you can get them going, they're gone. They'll be successful and they'll move on. But you still got that core group of folks that are still mentally ill and have substance abuse problems. And those are the ones the ones Jesus tells us to love. Those are the ones we got to help out. So I don't know what the answer is to that part of it, but yes, you need to have some requirements to help people keep moving,
Ray, look, I'm so glad you called in. I got your number. I want to give you a call this afternoon because I would, frankly, honestly, Ray, you know, and I didn't mean to keep you this long, but I feel like I got to get my kids involved in some ways. Well, I've got my buddy Jason who gets his kids down to one of the soup kitchens in Macon just so his kids can understand that world. And I feel like I got to get them involved in some way.
Yes. Well, I tell you, we got a perfect place for them to come and see people that aren't totally homeless, but they're poor, and it's a good place to start. And I have plenty of things for them to do, you know, handing the plate to the person, making eye contact and smiling and saying bless you, handing the water to them. When we were in the gym and actually doing the serving in the gym, well, then I had kids stand, and one would put butter on the grits, another one would put cheese on the grits, another one would squirt jelly on their toast, another one would squirt pancake syrup. So everybody had an opportunity to have ownership and be there and serve and be able to look at people and smile and exchange the pleasantries, and made for a really good opportunity for children to see how blessed they are. They've got a mom and a dad, and they're living well, and they've never gone without food. It doesn't hurt them to see that there are people in our community that are living on the line or living on the edge, and it doesn't hurt anybody to help. Well, listen, I got to leave it there, Ray. Thank you so much for calling in. And I'll give you a call. I'd never heard Scrambled Eggs for Jesus is the charity. And, you know, there is a balance there. And if you're wondering why Ray and I are talking at the first of this hour, I wanted to get away from just the convention and talk about so many people bothered by so much of what's going on in the country. And you got to actually seek the welfare of the community in which you live. And I didn't know Scrambled Eggs for Jesus was a thing, and I live in Macon, so I'm delighted to know. Now, you know what? I don't want to make an awkward transition there and get back to politics, so I'm going to go on and take a commercial timeout. And when we come back, I want to play some of the president's sound bites from last night at the convention. He wanted to speak every night. I told you I was concerned with how he was going to do it, but he turned out they did it very, very well. All right, the president, in his own words last night, one of those moments was the president talking to COVID survivors and first responders. Obviously, the media's like, they're not wearing masks. You know, they do have rapid tests they screen people with at the White House. This was actually a funny line, and it caused all the right heads to explode. And by the way, I've used that phrase several times today. It just what I mean is, there are predictable people who peddle outrage on TV who, you know, when the president does certain things, they're going to lose it. And this is one of those things that caused them to just lose their minds.
I'm a police officer in Englewood, Colorado, and I contracted COVID in late March and recovered.
That means we don't have to be afraid of you at all. Right?
Good to
Once you're recovered, you know, we have the whole thing with plasma happening. That means your blood is very valuable. You know that, right? Thank you very much. Great. Please.
I'm a detention deputy at the Kern County Sheriff's Department out in California.
Great.
And I also contracted COVID into March and recovered from that also.
How long was your problem?
I was sick about 10 days, really bad. I got everything besides a cough. But recovered. I was off work for a month and a half, and I work in our local county jails.
Did they do anything specifically to help you recover?
They gave me Z-Paks medication, cough syrup.
Okay, and I won't even ask you about the hydroxychloroquine because it's a shame what they've done to that one. But I took it. I took the Z-Pak also, and zinc. I want to thank you all very much. It's an honor to have you in the White House. You're fantastic people, and the people you represent an incredible group of people, and we love you all. Thank you very much.
I gotta ask, the president saying he took hydroxychloroquine, erythromycin, and zinc. Did the president have the virus? And I don't mean to be conspiratorial about it. I don't. But why would you take hydroxychloroquine, erythromycin, and zinc, which is the prescribed treatment for people who may have the virus, if you don't have the virus? And, you know, there was a time there earlier this year where people were saying the president, something was going on. Was there something going on with his health? He seemed sick. And I don't know, mere speculation on my part, but it just, he did take hydroxychloroquine, he says, and he turned out fine. One other one on the president showing up, surprised the people actually in the crowd. He showed up in Charlotte.
I want to thank Kirby and the incredible people I just met, farmers and wonderful business people and really humanitarians. They're incredible people. I'm thrilled to be at the Flavor First Growers and Packers facility here in the great state of North Carolina. And, you know, Joe Biden was supposed to be in Wisconsin, but he never showed up. I showed up. In fact, we did our count, our vote we did here in North Carolina. We did it in Charlotte a little while ago. I was there. It was a great, exciting moment, actually.
I just look, I like the president doing stuff like this because, you know, he does have a very good sense of humor. The few times, you know, so I've talked to the president. The president called me one night. I was actually out. I was at Ingleside Pizza here in Macon. Those of you who live in Middle Georgia, you've probably been there. It's kind of a classic restaurant in Middle Georgia. Great pizza. It's been around since I was in college. And we were sitting there late one night, and the president just randomly called. It was an unknown number. And I kind of suspected it was him because he had called a couple of times before. And I pick up the phone, and you know that story from the impeachment inquiry where the president called someone, and they're at a restaurant, and everybody could hear him. He talked so loud on the phone. The president calls me. We're in this restaurant. It's loud in there. And I swear to you, everyone in the restaurant can hear when I answer the phone and say, this is Eric. It's your favorite president. That's how he actually answered the phone. Or that's how he responded when I said, this is Eric. It's your favorite president. You know, stuff like that is actually, it's very funny. It's the side of him you don't see. And it's the side of the president that they really, really, really wanted to highlight and emphasize at this convention to try to humanize him, particularly with what the Democrats were doing to Joe Biden last week. More importantly, though, they wanted to highlight that the president, you may not like him, but you're going to like his policies, and that the policies are what matters. And they were fairly explicit in owning that contrast. One more from the president.
The worst year they've had in decades and decades, and we had the best year we've ever had. But we took in billions from China. We never took in 10 cents from China, never took in 10 cents. They took China for 25 years, and not only Obama, for 25 years, China was taking in anywhere between 200 billion with a B and $550 billion from the United States. I give them all the credit, number one, for being smart and outfoxing all of the people that stood here and their representatives. But China, we built China. We helped build. We gave them $300, $400, $500 billion a year. Because before that, and before the World Trade Organization and they getting into it, China was flatlined. It was after that happened. And then they took advantage of us because we didn't have people that were smart enough to see. And by the way, Biden would be the worst of all of them because his son took out $1.5 billion and he gets fees on $1.5 billion, which is millions of dollars a year. Right. Give me a break. China will own our country if this guy gets elected. We can't let it happen.
You're going to hear more of this in the coming days with the Republican Party as they meet in Charlotte and Washington. Now, what to look forward to tonight? Well, I guess I'm going to live stream. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth me doing that or not. But what you're going to be able to see at the Republican convention tonight is Melania Trump is going to speak. Eric and Tiffany Trump are going to speak. A number of governors are going to speak tonight as well, and you're going to have every single night this week, you're going to have someone who fled a socialist regime speak, typically a Central or South American socialist regime, and they will speak. And I suspect, just like the programming for the last couple of nights, one of the things they want to highlight is just how bad it would be if the Democrats were in charge, but more particularly how they're going to improve your lives in some capacity. This show, this hour, has been brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you are a business and need access to capital and credit and need to grow your business, go to FirstLibertyGA.com. FirstLibertyGA.com. They are a longtime sponsor of this program. If you're a business, they want to help you. Go to FirstLibertyGA.com and get them to help you grow your business.